mic is not working.
I think one of these might shoot.
Yeah.
Try this one.
Half the effect is gone in everything. Ready?
Yeah.
People have these little habits that get you down. Like Bernie liked to chew gum. No, not chew. Cough. So I came over one day out, really irritated, out looking for a little bit of sympathy. And there's Bernie lying on the couch, drinking a beer and juice. No, not chew. Coughing. So I said to him, you cough that gum one more time. And he did. So I took the shotgun off the wall and I fired 2 warning shots into his head.
Very metaphorical. He had it coming. You don't know what it's referring to. Did Mario have this program coming? Did he deserve it? Or all those murders that took place? No idea. But we'll come to know. Merril is going to open the proceedings with young Mario here. I will come in, I'm a man of few words. I'll come in occasionally. Okay. Right. Merril, on to you.
Hi everyone. Great to have you all here, and nice to see a lot of students in the audience as well. I read Mario's book a couple of months back, Moonlight and Shadow, Unsettling Tales, and I got to confess I had quite a few sleepless nights after reading the book. It's fairly terrifying, but a great read. I mean, I found it very visually vibrant, and it has some very engaging characters as well. So it's a collection of 10 short stories in the crime and mystery genre. So, Mario, since the time I've known you, you've always been writing in some way or the other. But I understand that you began professionally really writing, committing to writing at the age of 46.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's great. And I've known that you love writing children's stories, and I think there's a story behind that as well. But this is a very different genre from children's stories. So how did you get into this specific genre, and what excited you about it?
Yeah, I believe that each of us have two sides to our personality. One is the dark side, one is the light side. And the side that we show most people is the moonlight side. But we all have our dark sides, myself included. And I have absolutely no compunctions about admitting it. Most people don't see that side. Many of us are capable of great passions. We are capable of murder, perhaps. Many of us would like to take revenge for slights, for things that have been said or done to us. But we don't, because we live in a civilized society, and we are expected to behave in a civilized way. And those of us who are good Christians or Buddhists or Hindus, we learn about forgiveness, and so we try to forgive. But deep down inside, I don't know, maybe that desire for vengeance, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, maybe it's always there. So yes, I write children's stories, happy stories for children. I used to write them in verse until I heard this refrain from publishing houses: we don't do poetry. And I said, listen, this isn't poetry, this is rhyme, it's verse. But they didn't understand the difference. So I started writing all over again, and I wrote in prose, a mixture of prose and verse. But these stories come out of the dark side of my brain and the dark side of my heart. That's what I believe.
Thank you for sharing that. Would you like to read a small excerpt from your book? I don't think. Why don't we start with that? Yeah.
Yeah. So the book is titled Moonlight and Shadow, and this is an excerpt from that story. He set off between the trees, a noiseless, shifting shadow. The moon shone down, huge and yellow, as Derek slipped from one tree to another, one to another. He held his powerful, rechargeable mini torch in his hand. The torch beam helped him to see his way and avoid the fallen branches, treacherous hollows, and tree trunks on his path. Not that there was any path as such. The route was in his mind, firmly imprinted there by the trips he had undertaken over the past 2 months. He walked on. The moonlight glinted on his handsome 43-year-old face, with its deep-set brown eyes and aquiline nose, a face now set in stone. Had the light been able to penetrate his chest to the heart beneath, it would have revealed that that too was set in stone. Moonlight and shadow, he thought. As he observed the patterns of light and darkness on his path, we are creatures of moonlight and shadow. Moonlight is the side we reveal to others, the soft side, the gentle side. The shadow is who we really are in the deepest, innermost, most secret part of ourselves, a side very few people, perhaps none, get to see. Moonlight and shadow. All this time I have been like the moon, shining softly on others. Now the darkness has taken over.
Thanks so much, Mario, for that. I read a lot of, crime stories, mystery novels, all of that. But one of the things I really enjoyed about your book is that it is like almost every story is set in Goa, or it has a very specific connection to Goa. So, for instance, there is a crime that takes place at Dudhsagar. That's a place we go to enjoy ourselves.
Right.
So, are these stories inspired by real life incidents, and how did you find inspiration in these? There are a lot of narratives that we engage with every day, and we read about it in the paper.
Yeah. I observe a lot, and I observe people. I am fascinated by people. So I think if I have a strong point here, it is not so much plot as characterization. I love observing all kinds of people. I have this gift of being able to relate to people across the spectrum. It's because I find people fascinating. I love them. Doesn't matter who they are. It may be the vegetable vendor. It may be some big shop. Doesn't matter to me. But I look and I see, and that's what gives me inspiration. You see a rat picker walking on the road with her sack slung over her shoulder. A young, very pretty rat picker. And she picks up things from the road. And you get a thought, you get a word, Kachchra. And so you write a story called Kachchra. You see the moon, and you see the shadows. I usually get inspired by a title. You give me a title, I'll give you a story. It's as simple as that. It can be a dark story, it can be a story for children. Like when years ago when my daughter was very young, I had to tell her bedtime story at night when my wife was doing her PhD. So she would insist on an original story. No Cinderella, Snow White, no. I want a story about Sarah, who is her cousin, or about Khalil, another cousin. One day it was a story about a pillow. A pillow? Yeah, my pillow. I see. What's his name? Prem. Very nice. And nobody can see him. So Prem, the invisible pillow. I had to start, I had to continue, I had to finish the story. And the next day, when she was in school, I sat down and wrote the story. So give me a title. This is a gift. A gift that has come from the divine. Okay? I believe that. It came to me late in life. The gift of imagination. Give me a title, I'll give you a story.
Thanks for sharing that, Mario. I think your love, as you say, for people, it's very visible in the characters that you've chosen because they're very diverse. These characters, but another thing that I liked, that I found very interesting as a kind of a theme through a lot of your stories is there's some kind of vigilante justice happening, right? And I mean, there's a lot of crime in society today, but our legal system is fairly inaccessible. So, do you see more of that going to happen, and is that why you enjoy that specific theme? I feel like you might enjoy it, you know.
I think a lot of us feel impotent today. When you look at the law and order situation around, when you look at things happening and you are unable to do much about it, it's frustrating. It's frustrating for me. Sometimes you want to take the law in your own hands. So that can be as a member of society. When you see things happening in society that makes your blood boil. Things happening in Goa today. Things happening in the country today. Some of us are activists or try to take on the role of activists. But even in our personal lives, there are times when people have hurt us, have done things to us, and that, as I said before, maybe deep down we have a strong desire for vengeance, for justice, and we don't like to acknowledge it. So all these stories are born out of that desire for a vigilante kind of a thing, you know. I always liked that phrase, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. In my family, we've always had a strong desire for justice. I had to learn the quality of mercy as I went on, as I grew, you know. But yes, the desire for justice or vengeance, whatever you want to call it, is strong in me. And so each of these stories are born out of that feeling.
Thank you so much. Over to you.
Mario, since you speak about this, I noticed one thing that I'm a very vengeful person deep inside, but I don't do it. So I get kind of a vicarious joy out of reading this because it's like by proxy. As a psychologist, I would say it kind of fulfills that need in people. It's somebody is doing it, you know. Like there was this pastor who went to play golf, and of course he can't curse. So when he sliced the ball into the bunkers, he looked around and told that somebody please say something appropriate because he cannot curse. So when I read your books, I read those stories, I say, thank God, you know. Like I can't bear to think somebody got away with something. That in that way your stories have a nice ending. Like the bad guys get it in the neck. They had it coming, right? Yeah, so I leave it to you.
Yeah, I also felt a little bit of that, especially in your last story. So in that particular story, there is a little bit of this element. I mean, all of you have heard of acid attacks, which take place everywhere, and I think probably on Valentine's Day, the numbers might have even gone up. So I found it very chilling to read, and I think many times when we watch stories about people being convicted as well, we don't know what are those psychological triggers. So I think you explore that well, and we get a little bit of insight into the psychology of the terror that's happening, right? Both in terms of the victim and the perpetrator. So I found that quite interesting. There's a lot of detail in your stories. I mean, how do you deal with that as a writer? It's complex, right? When there is a detail, especially around a crime.
Detail is okay as long as it doesn't make the story boring. Too much detail can clutter a story and then you lose your reader. Just as if you're watching a movie and then you have a song and dance session here and another one there, you lose the thread. The leitmotif, gets dissipated. So, I think you'll find in a lot of these stories, there's quite a lot about the male gaze. The first thing is that, yes, I am a male. Okay, so I know about the male gaze. And then I look at women. I look at women in the buses and on the roads. You read stories of rape and gang rape and sexual abuse and acid attacks. And it makes me wonder, what do women go through every day? Young women, younger women, middle-aged women, sometimes old women. Men will never understand that totally. Even the most sensitive man, I don't think we can even come to terms with that kind of fear wherein a woman has to constantly look over her shoulder. Somebody brushes against her. Was it accidental? Was it deliberate? So, a lot of the stories have to do with that. Because I observe, things, and a lot of the things that I see makes me cringe. As if I were in the woman's shoes, so to speak. So a lot of the stories have to do with a man-woman relationship, and especially of the man as a predator. Because for years, men have seen themselves as predators, whether you like it or not. Okay, we have been conditioned to thinking that way, and it's only now, over the past few decades, that men have had to do a rethink. And I say, good, it's about time.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Mario. Is there any character that you identify with the most? I mean, do you see yourself in someone specific?
There are stories there. There is the first story called Kachchra, who is about a rag picker, a young 17-year-old, pretty young girl. I identify with her. I identify with the character in Moonlight and Shadow, who from the beginning is setting out on his journey to avenge a wrong. He's setting out to take revenge on 3 people, one at a time. So, as I said, I like to think of myself as a forgiving person, as a kind and compassionate person, but I know for sure that deep down there is this other side of me. And so, that guy in Moonlight and Shadow is me. At the end, in the last story, Surya, you have again, vengeance. I suppose each of these characters is also me, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, Mario, have you read Sidney Sheldon?
Oh yes.
Sidney Sheldon, I think in every story of his, the woman is the protagonist.
Right.
So,
Right.
you have a similar kind of movement? Like the woman, the protagonist?
I think in some of the stories, like Kachchra or So Many Ways to Kill, probably in one or two others, the woman is the victim as well as the protagonist. Look, I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm a male like any other male. I think like any other man, and I don't want to pretend otherwise. But I have also the quality of putting myself in the shoes of a girl or a woman and saying to myself, does she have to go through this? And it's almost always, the man who is the perpetrator. Almost always. Okay, sometimes it's the mother-in-law or the sister-in-law. Okay, but 9 times out of 10, it's the male. So maybe it's sex, maybe it's power, maybe it's a combination of both, So, yeah, I sympathize. I'm not sure I can empathize, but I sympathize with a woman.
Thanks for sharing that. I think it's good to have a mix of, self-awareness and also, as you say, sympathy if not empathy. I'd like to just end by saying that, your story, I think it's still waters. There is like a friendship element in that. It's got like it's got many characters, and it's strangely, it's also funny. The narrative is as funny as it is horrifying, and I could see that as like maybe a part of a web series around this theme. So I hope that happens someday for you.
Thank you.
And probably this is just the beginning, and I look forward to more stories in this particular series. Something else?
Well, just before we finish, you said this before. Give me a topic and I'll give you a story. I like to put you on the spot. Chair.
Sorry?
Chair.
Chair.
Chair. Can you give us the story? I don't want the whole story, because that should come out in the next book. But at least, and what ideas come, and it will be nice for people to know how you think, what gets you started just with chair. How do you? This is not planned, okay? Coach, I think I put him on the spot here, but let's do it. It'll be something educative for all the rest of us. Young people, they may be wanting to write stories. Young people, they will be wanting to murder somebody. Please buy the book, you'll get good ideas, right? Especially, I have heard that Nirmala students, I met the teacher who came with you. They want to murder their professors usually.
I'm sure.
From what I've heard, yeah. So you can get ideas here, but what would you develop? Any genre, it doesn't matter.
So we'll call it the man in the chair. He sits in his chair, gazing across the landscape. He looks far into the distance. His mind is calm, controlled. He feels nothing, absolutely nothing. He just gazes across at the trees, at the sky, and he waits. And he sees this man, his friend who had betrayed him, his friend from childhood, his best friend who had let him down. He looks at him and he sees, and he says, yes, keep walking. And the man walks because this man, the man in the chair, had told him, you want to find the way to the river? You have to go along that path, across the trees, through the forest, and just a kilometer away, you'll find yourself in the river. By the riverside, you like water, don't you? Go ahead. I've got a problem with my leg. I can't join you just now. I'll just sit on the chair, and I'll look at you, and I'll wait for you to come back. So he sees the man walking, his best friend, through the trees, a silhouette. It's getting late, later in the evening, the sun is setting, and he knows that this man is going to the river. How nice! The river is so nice, so calm. Water is healing. Trees are healing. Plants, greenery, the forest. What can be better than a walk through the forest, a walk straight to the river? And as the man walks, the man in the chair thinks to himself, another 10 minutes, another 10 minutes, and he will reach the edge of the forest. And just before he reaches the river,
Yeah, Mario, I think you stop here.
just before he reaches the river, my pit bull is waiting for him.
That really deserves it.
Thank you. Actually, this wasn't planned at all. I was caught completely unawares, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I think Clifford likes doing this, putting people on the spot, right?
It's nice.
It was fun.
I knew we could deliver.
Yes, absolutely. So I think we've done a lot of talking, and love to get any questions or any thoughts from the audience. Anything on your minds?
Yeah.
That was a brilliant rendition of a story, Mario.
Thank you.
I was reminded of Arthur Conan Doyle's The Hound of Baskerville.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Especially when you mentioned the pit bull. Does your mind or your process kind of enjoy the intricacies of being a detective novelist? Do you feel that you can aspire to be one? Thank you.
Yeah, Brian, I probably like you and like many of us here have been fascinated by Sherlock Holmes. You know, it's read his stories over and over again, the long ones, the short ones. He is untouchable. Agatha Christie is fabulous. Some young people nowadays will probably find her dated. Like, I think there may be people who find Enid Blyton dated. I love Enid Blyton. So my children's stories, if somebody says they sound like Enid Blyton, that's a compliment to me. It's a tribute to her. But yes, currently my favorite author is Michael Connelly. So the detective genre, the crime thing. I even like watching TV serials like what was the I can't remember the name, but it was to do with crime. Okay. Unfortunately, very often I can't watch it with my wife and daughter because they say it's too disturbing. You know, my stories, a lot of them have quite a bit of bloodshed. One or two of them, they're rather gruesome, so I apologize for that. But there's nothing I can do. As a writer, you are being dictated to by someone else. You are writing, you know, it sounds pretentious to talk of a muse. Okay, so poets talk of a muse. But the fact remains that when you are writing a story, whether it's a children's story or a crime story, your writing is being dictated to you. So if somebody tells you this story has too much bloodshed, why do you have a murder? A very good friend of mine, to whom I sent a story before it was published, one of the stories in the book, So Many Ways to Kill, she said, couldn't forgiveness take the place of vengeance? And I thought to myself, this is not a book for Mother Teresa. This isn't a book for the Dalai Lama or for His Holiness the Pope. So it's a ridiculous question. You know, I mean, I'm sure I can write a story or an article on love, forgiveness, compassion, but that's being done by people much better than me. So the thing is, you know, honesty is called for in your writing. So if you are supposed to write about crime and detective and bloodshed, well, you get on with it, you know. So yes, I am fascinated with, and I would have loved to be a detective, yes, to answer your question.
Thanks, Mario. Yes.
Hi, thanks, Mario. The pitbull was fantastic. My question was that a lot of times authors develop a very graphic imagery of the locale in which they live. And I'm curious whether your genre, have you brought the Goan part of who you are and where you stay into your stories? Because we haven't yet got your book. So I was curious about that.
Yeah, you know, you have Goan writers like Bai, Damodar Mauso, and Jose Lorenzo, and a whole lot of who write beautiful stories, lovely stories about the Goan way of life, the Goan milieu, you know. I admire them, and sometimes I wish I could be like them. But they write a lot of their stories are set in the villages. The red soil of Goa, you can actually see it, you can touch it, you can feel it, you can smell the flowers, you can smell and taste the salt breeze by the river. I'm not sure my stories are like that. My stories are very middle class because I come from a middle class. You know, I'm middle class, and but yes, these stories are set in Goa. Some of them are set in Ponda, where I used to live. One of them. The others may be set in a fictitious Goan village. But all of them are set very much in Goa, and I think have a lot, if not of the soil of Goa, at least you'll recognize the characters, you'll recognize maybe some politicians and the sons of politicians, and I've been warned not to talk too much about that, so I better climb up now.
Hi Mario.
Hi.
You mentioned that you're inspired by the title first and then you sort of develop the story from that. Can you tell me a few titles of books or short stories that you wish you could misappropriate and convert into their Black Mirror equivalents?
Well, there's the whole Sherlock Holmes genre, the whole, spectrum of Sherlock Holmes. And of course, there's Agatha Christie's legendary, it used to be called 10 Little Niggers. And then, thank you. It used to be called 10 Little Niggers, and now it's And Then There Were None. And there is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. And there are so many others which I can't remember. These are classics. Okay? And someday, I hope that some of these stories, and I have another 10 which are kind of scary tales. So there you are, you see the dark side again. It would be nice to achieve cult status. It would be lovely. But if I can't achieve that, with the dark tales, I am more than confident that I'll achieve them with my children's stories, because I think that's a genre that I really excel in. Okay? So, Enid Blyton is an inspiration. I grew up with all her books. I grew up with Agatha Christie, Alistair MacLean, all these people. And Michael Connolly, my current favorite, is exceptional. So if my books can be, reach somewhere, maybe 50%, I will be very happy.
Anyone else? Any ladies?
Yeah. Anyone there?
Anyone else?
Or the man of few words will take over. Forever hold your peace. Okay. Mario,
Yeah,
you
we
say...
have.
Yeah.
Thank you. I haven't read your book, but I'll pick up a copy from you. That was impressive how you weaved a story on the spot. That's amazing. So, are you a visual writer? Like, do you actually? What is the source of your writing? Yeah. Thanks.
One of the highest compliments I've been paid is that my stories are extremely visual. The children's stories as well as these. I've been told this by several people, and that for me is a very great compliment. They say that when you read the stories, you can see it happening. It's unfolding in front of your eyes. So it's believable, it's relatable, it's visual. For me, that's a wonderful thing, because that is what I strive to achieve. My children's stories, I know you're not supposed to talk too much about your dreams or about your vision. And when you look at me with this graying beard, that's because I'm supposed to take part in a musical, playing the role of a priest. Otherwise, there's no beard. So when you look at this, you might say, what is this guy talking about dreams and what he wants to achieve? Hey, I have dreams. And it's my wish and it's my belief that my children's stories will be made someday, many of them, into animation movies. Okay, so yes, I am grateful and I believe that my stories are extremely visual, and that is perhaps, along with the characterization, one of my strong points.
Can I ask?
Thank you. So, if someone's writing about, about their stream of consciousness, just writing, like a memoir or a non-fiction of their thoughts or ideas, how can they make those visible to the reader?
You are writing about yourself, so you are being brutally honest, I assume. So you are narrating a story about your life, about circumstances, situations. I don't foresee any difficulty there, because if you manage to grip your reader, if your reader is interested in who you are, then you've got your reader in the palm of your hand, and you are taking your reader along with you. And that is, I think, the strength. Look, this is just my first book, and I'm pontificating as if I've, written 100 novels and I'm. But the way I look at it, you write from the heart. This is what I believe. You speak from the heart, you write from the heart. And you must have the basic skill of writing. You must have a certain imagination. And I think the story just comes, it flows, and your reader is swept along in the narration.
I think we are done.
Okay, then Mario, you say Michael Connolly, but
Michael Connolly.
Michael-
Connolly, right.
Michael Connolly. You're confused.
Connolly.
I'm not asked you to tell us the story,
Right.
please.
Yeah.
So don't get confused. Though your stories remind me of, I don't think anyone here, maybe except the front row, would even have heard of him. James Hadley Chase.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
They're quick. His stories are quick, just like James Hadley Chase. They're quick, and the story is crime doesn't pay always. So I noticed that with you. You want to release it?
Oh, yeah.
So shall we ask one young person and one old person? Right?
There are no old people here.
Okay. So we'll ask a young person and a younger person.
Yeah.
Anyone from there?
Ma'am, would you like to come up, please?
To release the book.
Me?
Yes,
He's
please.
requesting.
Please.
Yes. And one young person?
Yeah.
Volunteers?
Anyone else likes crime stories among the young crowd there? Who doesn't mind bloodshed and
Anyone who doesn't like crime stories?
Good.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
good,
it.
good, good, great,
Come.
great, great, great.
That's very nice. Yeah, ma'am, what's the name? Rani. Oh, great, yeah.
And?
Yeah, and yours? Sorry? Basti.
Bhakti.
Bhakti. Nice names. Okay. So, if I would kindly, this is like a children's kind of a thing. Yeah.
Do we open it?
Oh, yeah, please open it. Absolutely.
And then do we get to keep it?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Very practical.
Very practical, you said. You can, if you have a childlike heart, you can even tear it apart, like children do.
Yeah, let's see that.
Expose it.
Alright?
Give me those papers.
Yeah, you take the paper
And you can hold
and
it.
can you hold it up? And thank you very much.
Book in your hand.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rani. Thank you, Bhakti. Real pleasure. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think that's all the time we have. So we've got to wrap it up. But thank you everyone for making it here today. It was a very vibrant session and wonderful questions. And I'm sure some of you who still have questions privately, you can go and meet Mario. And how do people reach out to you otherwise, online perhaps? How do they connect with you online?
Yeah, you
Is
can.
the email address given in the book?
I'm afraid not.
Yes,
Those who want, yeah, I'll give you, if you want, I'll give you my phone number, WhatsApp number.
And you can connect with him on Instagram. So Mario Coelho is on Instagram as well.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Please keep your seats.